Jag inte kunna ge förut. Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för dig baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. Och det jag lägger all min tid och jag vill ha dig. Du får mig känna safety. Jag kan nog leda dig baby. Och jag kommer aldrig ändra mig. Aldrig.
Yes. Peace. What's going on, family? How y'all doing?
Good, man. Good. Everything is going great here in the Berg, man. How y'all fellas?
Man, chilling like a villain, bro.
Good over here. Freetown. It's pretty nice weather today, man. I'm doing good. Yes, sir. I'm glad we're here to have this discussion. I'm excited about this one. But before we get into that, man, what's going on in the Berg in terms of preparations for our festival?
Man, let me just say this real quick. Last night, man, we were celebrating the last day of Black History Month at the Cosmic Green Spot, which is the headquarters for the Orangeburg Gullah Geechee Heritage Festival. My good friend Shakira, she threw down last night in honor of an ancestor. I'm assuming that she knew about her all the time. This was my first time hearing about her. A lady named,
what are you talking about?
A lady named Abby Clifton Fisher. Well, I believe she was the second African American woman to publish a cookbook in America.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Shakira had it going on last night, man. We had people from Augusta, Savannah, Winston-Salem, Charleston. It was about 20 of us. I would say about 15 to 20 of us last night, man, enjoying good food, good conversation, honoring the ancestors, and talking about the culture.
Yeah, Abby Fisher. I remember I first heard about her like 5 years ago. She was from Orangeburg, and I think she moved out around Mississippi, Alabama.
Well, she traveled. Okay. She traveled all across the country, man. She went to San Francisco and different places. Sharing her. She was enslaved here in Orangeburg now.
Okay.
I think Shakira said she was enslaved down around Roseville, Oaksville Plantation, somewhere down around that area.
Okay. It reminds me of Romeo.
You know what? Brother, you know what, Chief? Yeah. I had to drop that knowledge on them last night, man. I had to tell them about Romeo Govan and Cedar Grove and the Jenner's Plantation. Yeah, those were the type of things we were talking about last night, man. It was powerful, man. It was good. It was a good conversation. The Gullah Gardens, I'm calling it the Gullah Gardens. It was a little supper club. That's what it was. It was a little supper club.
Man. Real mature. I see the photos, man. It looked like you had a great time out there.
Sure. We did. We was kicking it old school style with turntables and everything. It was nice.
Yeah, man. So as you see going across the bottom of the screen out there, y'all, Cosmic Green Spot, 2238 Charleston Road is the location. The occasion is the second annual Orangeburg Gullah Geechee Heritage Festival. We are back, and we were just having a meeting a few days ago, man, and the lineup is looking great. Y'all really gonna have a great time this year at this festival. And, just the feedback and the vendors, they're piling up. You can just come out there and expect to really see Orangeburg put on display. We have people coming back like Brother Jalen. You can expect ours truly, Baba Kemoh and Brother Dom to definitely be out there. They got a word to say, a word to pass over. We got the same DJ coming back. He killed it last year. And so we're just going to continue to develop this festival as an institution year by year. But y'all make sure y'all spread the word. Tell somebody that it's going down March 28th in Orangeburg, Gullah Geechee Heritage Festival. With no further ado, y'all want to get into this discussion today. So we're talking about what exactly is the topic? Don, you want to break it down for us?
Africanisms and contemporary Gullah Geechee culture, man. That means what are the African rooted customs, beliefs, and traditions that are being practiced today amongst Gullah Geechee people. And what do we mean by Gullah Geechee people? That means those who are rooted in the Low Country and Sea Islands, and the branches extend all over the states of South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and beyond.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And so, to give people some examples of like Africanisms, right? Like, because sometimes they'll be subtle. You won't know that it's an Africanism.
That's
you
right.
know, you won't realize that certain what do you call them? I guess spookisms that we have. Certain what do you call them, bruh? Like when you have these beliefs, crazy beliefs like splitting poles and what happens when you sweep someone's foot, and the origins of those beliefs actually go back to our ancestors translating culture in the Americas, transferring culture into the Americas. But how would you know an Africanism when you've seen one, or if you actually retain one yourself? How would you know if you are actually a retainer of some Africanisms?
Man, you have to live it yourself. You have to be a part of it. You have to grow up in it. As we say out in the country, man, you have to feel it to the bone. See, I see it every day. When I'm in the grocery stores, I hear it in the conversation. When I'm at the barbershops, I hear it how we express ourselves. When you see it, I've lived different places. I've seen it down here in the Low Country. I've seen it in places in New York. I've seen it in Jamaica. I've seen it. You have to live it, man. You have to be a part of it. It has to be a part of you. It don't necessarily go ahead, jump in, Don.
Yeah, let me add to it, because one thing about some of us, some of us don't know that it has an African root to it. It's just part of our daily life. It's a part of the very makeup of how we live in the South, because the quote Michael City, the country way sometimes is the African way. So unless you got people in your ear telling you, oh, this is African originated, they know of it, but they won't know the roots of it, rather.
Exactly. So today we're going to show you how to begin to identify certain Africanisms that exist not only within Gullah Geechee culture contemporarily, but within the general African American community, and at certain parts, the African diaspora community and the African community. We have certain things we just do as Africans, and that's what we call Africanisms. Certain things we just do, that make us who we are, that's so deeply rooted in our ancient culture and tradition and civilization that we don't know where it starts from.
That's right.
But we're not going to have food without music in our culture. I don't care if you in religion or you just having a good time like Baba Kemoh was having last night. You understand? So we always put certain things together, and that's just a part of our culture and our tradition. It's more than just being from Africa as a person. It's also retaining and containing certain Africanisms that make us African as well. So we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to start first with one category of Africanisms. And we can just pass the mic and just chop it up a little bit. But we're going to talk about logistics. Africanisms within the way that we talk. Like when we say tote, tote is an African word. When we say juke, when them boys in Memphis is juking, juke, the jukebox. Yeah, that's an African word. Okra is an African word. Okay is an African word. Do you know that? Okay, African word. So those will be considered Africanisms. But let's talk about some particularly within the context of Gullah Geechee culture real quick. A lot of names that we have today have African origins or influenced by Africa, right? For instance, I have a son. My son's name is Kwazil. That Kwa, you have a whole subgroup of Niger-Congo people known as the Kwa people. You have Kwame, like Kwame Nkrumah. And so I named my son Kwazil, and I call him Kwazi. And I had no idea about the connection. It was just from my own culture of being a Black American that I kind of inspired that name for my son. I didn't know anybody else with the name. But the Kwa was something that made it sound African to me. That made it sound traditional to me, made it sound Black to me. And so that was an Africanism that I can recognize within my own naming of my son. You understand? Without me even being conscious that this was something that passed over, me putting Kwa in a name is actually something very Ghanaian.
That's right.
You understand?
Lorenzo Dow Turner, whose book I have right here, one of my many study guides, he documented the name Kwame. He documented plenty of Akan names. Like that's like, so you basically reclaim that name, which was a part of our collective ancestral cultural memory. So, you know, that's fire.
Exactly. Exactly. So what's some other names out there that we know about within the Gullah Geechee culture and heritage that we can say definitely African names? We still use them. You know, we got one brother whose last name is Cato, very, very close to us. And that right there, African name. You know, what's some of the African names y'all heard throughout, you know, just throughout your own studies and your own journey?
Oh man, Baba, you go first.
Oh man,
I'll tell you one. Kemoh. I knew an old head named Kemoh. I knew an elder named Kemoh that grew up. He was old for me, like my mama's age, but his name was Kemoh. In my community in York, Pennsylvania, his name was Kemoh. And now my cousin's name is Kemoh too. Kemoh was an African name that actually survived because I know an elder named Kemoh since I was a 5, 6, 7-year-old boy. And he was from down South Carolina.
Okay. Let me break it down. Like Chief just said, Kemoh is a very popular name in the culture. When I was coming up in the hip hop days, there was a guy, he was a real good dancer. His name was Kemoh. He used to say it was short for chemotherapy because he was such a good dancer. That was in the days when we was break dancing and doing all those kind of type of spins and everything. Kemoh was the man. He used to break it down on Grand Avenue in the South Bronx. And originally, he was from the South. Just to back it up a little bit, one of the most common words I hear in everyday conversation, going around town in the grocery stores and the barbershops, is the word yana or unu.
Yeah,
I hear that word often when I'm standing in the line buying food at the grocery store, talking to the boys in the barbershop. I hear that word a lot.
I grew up, I hear that word every day when I'm around elderly people. Yana. What does yana mean? You or y'all? It's just another way of saying hana, wana, and una, and yina.
Yeah.
That word has, if I'm correct, I believe that it has Igbo roots, I believe.
Igbo, I heard Mende. Am I correct? I've heard Mende for that. It's cross-cultural.
I've seen the word, I've seen the name in documentation, the name Tene, and I know Tene. They're from here. It's a Mandingo name. Tene, or it's a Manding name. Also, a very common name in our culture. My wife, Malinka, is saying Aisha.
Aisha.
You know, yes, my sister-in-law is Aisha. And it's a very common name. You know, then she says F.A. We all know F.A. We all know F.A. And it's really a traditional African name. Even Jenny, you understand?
Yeah,
these are African names.
Another one too that's of Igbo origin and probably has cross-cultural roots is Anika.
Okay,
yes,
Chief, you just said
I know Anikas.
You just said Tina or Tina, which is one of my great grandmothers was named. That was her name, Tina Graves. Tina, Tenah. My own,
yes, how you spell it, yeah.
My own name, the very first name I had as a child growing up, and I'm going to say it was a basket name because Papa Joe gave me this name. My very first name that the family called me was Doozy. That was my nickname. Man. That was my nickname as a toddler. Okay.
Yes.
And it was years later when a brother from Nigeria, I believe he was an Igbo brother, he told me that was short. There you go, for Chidozi. And even now to this day, only my very first cousins who I grew up with in the house with Papa Joe and Miss May and my immediate family, they are the only ones to this day who still call me Doozy. And if you call me Doozy, that means you know me.
You know me a long time.
You done know me a long time. And not too many, even now to this day, it's only a family member that will call me by that name.
That's like with basket names. The beauty of them, like only those who are a part of your family and known you for a long time, they can call you by those names. Like one of my basket names is Skeeter, which is short for mosquito because tall and slender built. So I was kind of ashamed of it when I was younger, but as I got older, I learned to embrace it. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Papa Joe gave all his grandchildren basket names.
Yeah.
Every last one of us had a basket name, and if he called you that, you better come running.
And that's actually an African tradition. Even a lot of the naming traditions that we have in our families, being named after our uncles, being named after our aunts, after our grandparents, a lot of that is African tradition as well, but we don't recognize it as that. And so let's talk about place names, right? We talk about Sapelo Island. One time I was doing research with the late Harold Hillary, and we was researching Sapelo. And I realized there's only one other place in the world with Sapelo in his name. And that place is located in Burkina Faso. There's a place in Burkina Faso called Sapelo. And the only other place is Sapelo Island, Georgia. And I said, wow, that's amazing, because I remember also reading that the first 200, 300 Africans that were taken to Sapelo Island were bought by Thomas Spalding directly from Henry, what's his guy's name in Charleston? Forget his name. He had the direct connection to
Henry Lawrence.
Yeah, Henry Lawrence. Yeah, Henry Lawrence. Right. So he bought Africans directly from Bunce Island through Henry Lawrence, and that became the first Africans that populated Sapelo Island. So Sapelo Island is a Gullah Geechee community that we know came directly from Bunce Island to Charleston, and ended up being the first population to be held enslaved on Sapelo Island. So most of those people are going to have a root here in this region. Most of them. That's how you get Bilali Muhammad and the rest of the family there on that particular island. But I didn't know that the only place in the world where Sapelo was a place name was in Burkina Faso. And it makes sense because they brought people from way interior to the coast. It wasn't people just at the coast just selling each other. There's people coming from interior wars in Africa being brought to the coast and being exchanged. And so, yeah, man, very important.
A lot of Equiano. Say it again. We say, cuz?
I said, so what about y'all? Y'all know any other place names?
Back in the time, I read Blackville. Well, Blackville, as people like this. Some people say, I say Blackville. Back in the time, it was known as Pinder Town or Pinder Town. And of course, Pinder or Pinder means peanut, which of course is a term of African.
Man, well, here locally, we have a Timbuktu here.
Yeah.
We have we got the Lion's Den. In certain places, you would have to be from Orangeburg just to know exactly what I'm talking about. And there's people from around here. An outsider wouldn't know these type of areas. Bowling Town. Everybody knows. Yeah. Everybody around here would know what I'm talking about. Even just to say Grambling Road or whatever, man. Everybody know that's down in Four Holes, or a Slab Town. Town.
Yeah, Shilling Bridge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Certain place names been around for forever. Even the plantation where our own ancestor came from, Hollow Creek. Hollow Creek has been around since antebellum days, but you have to be from here to know that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'd have to know the history of that Hollow Creek area.
Speaking of back in the days, even our ancestors who were fleeing enslavement and fighting for freedom in Florida established the Angola colony.
That's right.
They actually established a whole colony of resistance called Angola in Florida. Do you understand? And this is part of the history that is left untold, but that's also our Gullah Geechee history and our African history here within the United States. There's someone saying here, there's also people who trace to Burkina Faso through African ancestry. That's very true, because Burkina Faso is beginning to create policies that pave the way for people from their ancestry and even from the diaspora in general to return and have citizenship in their country and everything. So absolutely, Burkina Faso is one of the countries that we know we have ancestry connected to, because people are now returning back because they have ancestry connection to that country.
That's right.
So that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to another aspect. You know, we talked about the name for a minute. Talked about, you know, the names of people and places. What about animals? What about Kuda? What
Kuda.
About,
turtle.
What about that? What about them Africanisms?
Turtle. Yeah, I had
Kuda,
that's a common nickname as well. That goes back to the basket names. Like you will find plenty of people all throughout South Carolina, particularly Orangeburg, that got that nickname Kuda.
Oh yeah, man. I know cats.
Right.
Grew up with cats named. Grew up with cats named Kuda. When I was young, it used to be very popular. Kuda soup. My grandma used to call her baby chickens Biddy.
Biddy, yeah, that's right.
Bitty bitties. Those are African words, straight out of the culture.
It comes from the Congo word bitty bitty for small bird. Yeah,
small. All right. So, what about plants? Any plants that we kept the names? Like I said, okra for sure. We never changed the name okra.
Yam, like sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes, of course, are different from yams, but when enslaved Africans saw them, they reminded them back of different plants they knew of, which they called yam.
Yeah,
that's one.
Yeah.
Now, y'all remember the when people were back in the day when people would go in the fields or to the edge of certain swamps and they was gathering certain leaves and plants to make their teas and herbs and everything, like everlasting tea. But yeah, for medicine. I remember my grandmother would look.
That's before my time. That's before my time.
Yeah, I was listening to it. I'm like, yeah, I wasn't there.
Well, y'all young, y'all don't know about that. See, I'm an old man now, so but I remember Miss May going. She would get mint leaves, and she would boil them down, and she would use that to make like a paste to rub on your arm if you got it to into poison ivy and things like that. Because we didn't really go to we went to the doctors. That was a new thing. But my mother's generation and before that, man, your granny was the family doctor. You got sick, they dose you up. They dose you up with that old school.
Yeah, man.
No, on Friday night. On Friday nights, we had to get dosed up every Friday night. You know, my grandma would give us Phillips 66 or molasses and different things she would use to keep us healthy. And another thing that was if you step on a nail and you got what they used to call like lockjaw or something like that. If I remember correctly, lockjaw. She had some remedies for that. She had remedies for every kind of little, every kind of little ailment that would pop up for babies.
And I was told by a family member also that my second great grandmother, she would take moss off and put it in the shoe for fever. Like I said, the sassafras, the mother. Like I said, I wasn't there before my time, but I got a lot of stories that were passed on to me about those times.
So. One other thing they used to boil and drink was the husk from the corn.
I heard talking about it.
I remember my grandparents would get that husk and boil it down, and you would drink that soothe your guts and soothe whatever was going on.
My grand told me they would take the husk and they would rub it on their skin too, from like measles or when poison ivy or whatever.
Rashes.
That liniment, that horse liniment was very popular back then because my grandparents, they were still feeling aches and pains from their cotton picking days and things like that. So Miss May was always rubbing her legs with liniment.
That ointment. You don't know what it is, but it's
you don't know what it is. And that liniment was strong, man. Soon as you walk in the house, soon as you walk through the door, you say, "Oh man, grandma, she rubbing her leg down or she rubbing her foot down."
Yeah, you smell it.
Yeah, you smell it through the whole house. It was strong.
That's powerful, man. Just to think that oftentimes people reduce us to our ancestors to a 5-letter word, slave, SLAVE.
That's right.
But when you really break down who we are and you understand the culture and the origins of it, you realize we're actually geniuses.
Scientists.
It's
I would go.
Yeah. absolute survivalists, bro. We understood how to adapt and survive through it all the way up till now. I wish we can get back to this traditional knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's like I was telling Bill and a few other Clarence a few nights ago. I said, we good for saying, the older generations made something out of nothing, but nature is something. Knowing how the different herbs, roots, and plants work and what doesn't work, that's something. That's why I love to say nature was our laboratory and our ancestors were scientists, man. I stand on that.
Absolutely. So, Doe Turner's research on Africanisms in the Gullah dialect, of course, very important for us, but how fundamental was his work to the studies of African Americans and African diaspora cultures as a whole? Because from my understanding, and you got the book right there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? From his first hearing Gullah Geechee spoken in Orangeburg, he went on like a 20, 30-year journey, man, just studying Creole languages and cultures around the world, and was able to juxtapose between what they have in common and what they don't have in common, and come up with his own understanding of how, our ancestors were able to use language and in their days. How important is it for us to always keep Doe Turner in perspective as we talk about these Africanisms? Because he was recording people singing, he was recording people dancing, he took photos,
His work, man, was groundbreaking because anybody else before who still, the language was being studied, but they were studying from a very biased and racial view. He got into culture, and like you said, for decades, and he did the diasporic and the roots of it. Like his work was monumental and groundbreaking, man. Like over 4,000 words, names, long words were documented. Like from over 31 African languages. So,
man, Turner was a spark, and you have to remember that when he came to Orangeburg, it was the intellectual hub for the state of South Carolina, for the Midlands, for the Low Country. I mean, if Turner hadn't come here, we wouldn't have known about the Gullah culture. He, like I say, he was the spark. He was the beginning.
That's right.
He introduced us to these to what we know today. And we also remember he was Harvard trained. I believe he was Harvard trained as well. So he was already an expert.
Yes, he was.
He was already an expert in linguistics. So when he heard them folks speaking Gullah, it blew his mind. He said, like, where y'all from? And they told him right away. They told him right away, we Gullah. What this is how we talk. And I guess, and I'm gonna say it like this. I know they was up on State College and everything, but they was also living out amongst the community.
That's right.
They was also living amongst the people, because in a family way, all my aunts married Low Country men, and they stayed right here in Orangeburg, and they raised us. You know what I'm saying? So we've always been a part of that Low Country connection.
Yeah, even before that, Gullah's diaspora, you had hundreds or even more people being sold from the quote unquote Low Country Sea Islands into Orangeburg District. So they're forming was already being formed, and you got people coming in, late arrivals after the 1807, 1808 slave trade coming in. So that just adding to the amalgamation right there. Hence why we got the words like yana, bowl, jug, okra, yam, blah, so on and so forth already, in our linguistic.
Exactly. Especially when you have a population that's is growing through natural growth, but also growing because of constant importation of new Africans, importation of people coming from different languages, and so if you can understand that kind of environment, man, to understand that Charleston was established 65 years before Orangeburg.
That's right.
And by the time Orangeburg was established, the rice plantations was already producing, massive amounts, and the majority of people in Carolina was black already.
That's
right. We got to understand. We got to understand this, right? It's the very origins of it. So, shout out to Doe Turner.
Yeah. You want to?
Yeah. Go ahead, Don.
Well, yeah, like, you know, how we do, you know, got to study the maps. You got to see how the maps change over time. Orangeburg District and Charleston District, right there where, quote unquote, Berkeley County is today, it was right next to each other before Berkeley was even created back in the 1880s. So, of course, you got an importation of people being sold back and forward. I mean, the runaway advertisements, they help show that, and the wills and other documents.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's move to another area of Africanisms. It's very important that we're saying Africanism because there's an argument out there that Gullah Geechees are Native Americans, and I don't see any Native Americanisms in our core language and in none of these areas. But I do see inspiration. I see direct connection from the same ancestors that we're connected with now. And so it's important that we're making sense and saying these are Africanisms. We're pointing out where Biddy comes from.
That's right.
We're telling you where these words that we use in common all the day long, all across America, as Black people originate.
That's right.
In Africa. And so that's why it's important to point out the Africanisms. For those who understand, Gullah Geechee culture is one of the root cultures of African American culture. We are African culture. We're not the only one. You have other regional cultures that are also very influential, like you have Louisiana culture. You have Virginia, Chesapeake Bay culture.
That's right.
Cultures all over that had their own little culture, but we Gullah Geechee people happen to be the ones who retain the most Africanisms.
That's right.
And that's very, very, very important.
That's right.
It's very, very important. It's a reason why that is. When we go back to the numbers of Charleston imports, and we understand that South Carolina was a Black majority from 1708, and all that slavery happened with us being a Black majority there, and that the white man couldn't really hang over us and whip us all day from sun up to sundown. They had to give us tasks and had to stay away from us for months at a time. And in that, we was able to retain these Africanisms that we're talking about, right? Very, very important. And so let's go into the arts and craftsmanship, the boat making. Talk about the boat making. I was just at a place here in Sierra Leone, and I seen a boat, and I seen even fish nets, and it looked strikingly similar to what you see when you look on the videos and you go down to the low country. It's like, man, did the same people make these boats? And yes, when you see these fish nets here, and you see the fish nets that they make in Charleston right now and down in St. Helena, and you go to the festivals and people down there demonstrating them, they still make them and use them here all up and down the Sierra Leone coast. The same exact fish nets. They use the same type of canoes and boats and things like that all up and down this area where I'm at in Sierra Leone. And so that's just here. But just imagine that we had boat making and fish net making all over West Africa where there was a coastline and water. And you had people from all over the place putting their collective knowledge of fishing together, of net making together within the Gullah Geechee culture. And today we still have one of the best, most preserved, traditional African-oriented cultures in African tradition. Brother Ross Lazarus is saying right now, crew people of West Africa is where they get the term crewmen of a ship. Very, very important to understand that even certain words that we use that we think come from English come from how they were able to use people from our cultures in a certain kind of way. Very, 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 very good point. And so, what about the basket making, y'all? Because
man.
Don, you just made a great post earlier this week.
Yeah, I'm found in Calhoun County, which was part of Orangeburg County, made up the larger Orangeburg district until the 1910s. There was a basket weaving tradition. An elder named Charles Youngs, he, instead of using sweetgrass, which was grown on the quote unquote southern eastern side of Orangeburg, he used white oak, of course. So that just like was a substitution for what was used in the lower country and the Sea Island areas. And Baba, you can piggyback up on this because you witnessed, as you said, your grandmother, great grand making baskets in Orangeburg.
That's right. There is. I've recently heard that there was people who made basket weavings back in the 40s and 50s. My grandparents had baskets on the old barn at their house that they used it for different things. My grandmother would walk through her little chicken yard with a huge wide basket a huge wide basket that she used to feed her chickens with.
Can you elaborate too? What location in Orangeburg was this happening? I want so the viewers can know this too.
Oh, this is right in Great Branch community. This is in Great Branch.
Oh, wow. I mean, Great Branch, huh?
This is right in Great Branch. People tell me now that at one time they used to grow rice right here in Orangeburg County in Great Branch, right behind New Light Church.
That's right.
It wasn't huge, but they did grow rice. Now the Georgetown area, St. George, they grew rice down there. Even in Bowman, I've heard of plantations down in that area. I've seen these baskets. Yeah. I've seen these baskets in Jamaica when I was in Jamaica as well. So these coaches spread it down to the West Indies as well. It wasn't isolated. A lot of different African people have basket weaving skills.
All throughout the diaspora. My second great grand on the property in which I'm staying on now, he grew rice in the early 1900s. So product of that.
Exactly. And that's Africanisms.
That's right.
That's complete Africanisms right there. Let's talk about blacksmithing. Blacksmithing is very big in our culture in Africa and also in the diaspora, but particularly within the Gullah culture, we have people from several cultures that were known for their work with metal. Igbo people, the Akan people. I seen one elder in Savannah showing how much of the metal work was done in Savannah by the Akan people and how they put even the Adinkra symbols inside of the designs of the work that they was doing. And the Booker didn't even know that they was encoded Africa in their designs. You understand? But it's right there to be seen.
It's right
250 years ago, a blacksmith did this design.
That's right.
It's right there in Savannah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
It's right there in Savannah. I've been there. I've seen it for myself. You can walk. You got to walk down some very steep steps and everything. But way up on the very top of the building, like I guess you call that the facade or facade. I think that's the word for it. But you can see the how they did the ironworks. I've been down to what's my man name? Mr. Philip Simmons, I believe. I've been to his house and I've seen his workshop where he was an iron worker. And recently, I found out that my own ancestors were men of iron. They were called iron workers. They were called mechanics, but they were iron workers in Sumter. And even in Orangeburg, a lot of them were blacksmiths. That iron is very important. Ironwork and blacksmithing was very important in Gullah Geechee.
Yeah, one of the last documented blacksmiths in Orangeburg County is the guy. His name was, if I can remember correctly, was Charles Furtick. His last name, Sally. His last name was Sally, who of course would be connected to all three of us here.
Peter.
There's a photo
Peter
of
Sally.
870s. Say it again.
Talking about Peter Sally.
That's right.
That's my great grandfather.
Well, no, that would have been someone related to him. This was back in the 70s.
You took
70s. Okay, 1970s. Okay.
Yeah, I got to show you the photo. Yeah, he was a blacksmith. One of the last documented. Keyword documented.
Yeah, documented. Exactly. But so let's go on to another area, man. Of course, we on limited time, but we keeping it rolling. The people are interacting in the inbox. Cousin Jewel was saying that they still make the baskets over there where she at. She did her DNA and found out that she was Jola. Went over there, got married, everything, man, doing great work in the community. And she's one of my cousins through the McClellan line. She's a descendant of the McClellans.
Okay.
And yeah, man. And so she's been over in Basar, kicking in the doors, organizing the people over there. And so she said here that they still make the baskets even over there. And that they do it to clean the rice. And it's true. Even here, they call it fanner.
Fanning the rice. Yeah.
They shoot the rice up like this and the shape comes out. It cleans the rice.
The wind
And
would blow it
Exactly.
away too.
Yeah, the wind blows it. Yeah, it blows the
in the
shape.
picture from
And so-
Orangeburg District in the early 1900s, you can see you got one elder be using a mortar and pestle, and you got another lady. She has a fanner basket, and she's winnowing the rice.
That's right. That's right. And so these are the Africanisms, y'all, that we're talking about. Just to the people out there watching, these are the particular Africanisms that you won't find only in Gullah culture, but you'll find people making baskets throughout the South. You find people toting things on their heads throughout the South. You see photos, documentation, right? And, and so that's our culture. That's what we call the continuity.
That's right.
The continuum.
Mm-hmm. Right? I know y'all heard about the brother Corey Aston that just made that huge, I believe it's 5-foot basket, and it's now it's on an exhibit in the Smith.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, the biggest one ever. Yeah,
and
man.
It took him, I believe, a year or longer to make this basket, and it's huge from what I see online and everything. I saw people sleeping in this basket. That's how big it was. It was able to hold like 2 grown people, and it's like 5 feet tall. And you know, they asked him to make that basket, and he did it.
That's probably the biggest basket since this enslaved person made a basket. He was from the Low Country area, Sea Islands. He made a basket weave boat and floated away to freedom, man. So that's big there. That big sense.
And you know what's powerful is that we don't use the baskets in the same way in Africa. We use them still the same way. Yeah. So what Gullahs have done to preserve our basket weaving by turning it into art is something different. And so when you say it's the biggest one, it might be the biggest one that anyone ever tried to make in that style. Period. It might be really some legendary stuff that they're able to do. So shout out to that brother Corey, man. I be proud when I see stuff like that, man. I love seeing the genius of my people on display. You know what I'm saying? Very powerful thing. Yeah, Kenya said here, she's saying that's how you know we came to America with those ironworking skills.
That's right.
Of course, because the same thing with the rice. The same thing with, we're going now into architecture. What about architecture? You know what I'm saying? Even the same dungeons and the fortresses that they held us in was largely constructed by African hands as well. When you talk about Negro Fort, you know, they didn't build it for us. You know what I'm saying? They didn't build it for us. You understand? We had to build it. You talk about laying the foundations of Charleston. You look at the main streets of Charleston. You think them white boys did that hard labor?
The Edisto Gardens, owned by Christopher. Let me see if I'm correct. Christopher Michael Rowe or Michael Christopher Rowe. He had enslaved people digging ditches there. You probably got. I'm not gonna say that. I ain't gonna say that on the airways. So I don't know for sure. I keep that to myself.
Exactly. So, yeah, we're talking about architecture real quick. Kemoh, you got anything to add?
Architecture. I remember one thing I do remember is like people had, and you can still see them here. Old they call them shotgun houses. You know, you can still see them way out in the country. Another thing I remember, a lot of us had carpet making skills that you learned from your grandfathers and great grandfathers, because a lot of my uncles built their own houses. Papa Joe built his own house. Mr. Bill, my grandfather, he built his own cabin, and it was a lot of men who had carpet making skills back in the day. Even my great grandfather, not my great, but my great grandfather, Oscar Johnson, he was known for his carpet building skills in the Canaan area, because he helped to build, I believe he helped build Canaan Church out in Cope. And even my other great grandfather, the first churches, they built them themselves. You know, they had to do the carpentry work themselves.
That's right. You know, and you know, these are in Africa. You have to understand that these crafts, these arts, these talents, they are preserved within societies and passed down from generation to generation within clans.
That's right.
Usually by word of mouth, through a system of apprenticeship and mastery. And this is what some people can take all the way back and connect it to the ancient Kushite Nubian societies, the ancient Kemetic societies, Ethiopia, Abyssinia, you understand? Aksum, where our people built also, we use the same arts, the same talents, the same, what they call it, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, right? We use the same steam, the same things to construct America that we use also to construct Africa's ancient civilizations, that our people was preserving ancient wisdom when they was preserving that boat making and that basket weaving.
Let me say this. That knowledge had to come from somewhere. And these were educated men in the sense that we think of them as being educated men. They got their knowledge from their fathers and their fathers before them. And the more I study, the more I learned that knowledge traveled with them across the ocean.
Yeah.
Papa Joe was a cattleman. He didn't learn how to do that in no school. He learned that from his father and his grandfather. And then come to find out when I did my own DNA testing that my testing is from the Umbundu people, and come to find out that they were big cattlemen. So Papa Joe was just carrying on knowledge that came across the water with him. That came across the water with his ancestors and everything. So it wasn't learned in school. It was learned from father to son, father to son, father to son.
One more I might add, we flip. I know people who might remember this as well. Yard brooms. You ever seen elderly people sweeping their yards or whatever?
I see people do that every day.
There you go.
I see people do that every day because you know what, family? That was your burglar alarm system. You sweep your yard when you sweep your yard in the evenings, when everybody go in the house for the night. When you get up in the morning, you can see who been in your yard. You know if a stray dog or a stray bobcat or whatever, because the yard has been swept clean, so you can tell who been walking through the yard. And you know if you had an intruder. You might wake up the next morning and see a footprint in the yard and make you want to be like, hey, who been here last night? Somebody could have been sweeping around your place. So to sweep the yard was like, I guess that was an early burglar alarm system.
Yeah, and then making the yard as well, using the different straw that grew on the field. Because my grands, they said that they grew up seeing their mothers, grandmothers make them as well, and then all across the South and the diaspora, all the way in Africa, you can see that.
Oh yeah. And they were also used for decoration. Nowadays, they were used for decorations in your homes. People would get those little straw brooms and hang them up over the doors. And, and of course, the brooms were used for wedding purposes because they would jump over the broom for matrimony.
That's right.
That was our...
Hey, Baba, also even here, I've been in traditional societies and villages here where they bring out what they call them debu. But what it is like the masquerades. They have different ancestral masquerades that come out during different festivals, different times. And I've been in the Timni traditional villages. I've seen their masquerades come out. I've seen them do their thing. I've seen the Mende do their thing. And the Mende got one. And he's like all straw. He's like a big broom. And this same one you're finding different traditions and cultures throughout West Africa, at least, where people run from this broom. This broom has some kind of
magical power.
Yeah. So every time I see it, I think about the fear that we have for the broom sweeping our feet. Like, man, it must have came from something like that.
Hey,
people run from these masquerades. People run for their life from these masquerades.
People will get highly upset if you sweep their foot with a broom, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
My mama would get highly upset if she got you sweeping a house on Saturday mornings and you run that broom across her foot. Man, she might smack you for that.
And you got
upside the head for that.
And one variation of you got to spit on it because it says
you either got to spit on it, or I believe you take a little bit of salt and throw it over your shoulder.
It's all three of them. All three of you, right?
Yeah. 3 sports.
I've seen that.
And,
I've seen that done over the years. Over the years when I was coming up.
If all else fails, I'm gonna sweep my own foot.
Yeah. I always sweep my own, cuz for real. I avoid that for real, even to the day. So Ross Lazarus is also adding as well. He said stonemason is a big one for Gullah too. Absolutely. Masonry, brick masonry, all kind of masonry. We're talking about Prince Hall masonry is big in the Gullah culture. Gullah men were builders. Gullah men were builders. We took pride in building. We took pride in planting food and building things together and creating things with our hands and with our minds. And we still do. We still have that spirit about us where we're scientific. We like to go out and master trades and master technology and master arts. We like to be masters.
Hey man, hey, let me tell you how this, man. Big brick masonry was very popular. I knew a man, an old man back in the day. His name was Bubba Washington, and he used to work in the brickyards. And what he did was every day he would take a brick home to eventually he had enough bricks to build him a little shed on his property. I don't know what he used it for, but every day he would take a brick home till he had enough bricks to build whatever he was building. And his boss man had no idea what he was doing. But every day he would slip it in his pocket or slip it under his coat or whatever and go on home. And that's how he built his little shed.
Wow. See that? See that?
But he was a master brick mason. He was a brick mason. That was his everyday job.
Yeah, man. So, like I said, we was that. There you go. We was masons, we was fishers, we was farmers, we were blacksmiths, and we came to America like that. We were targeted in Africa because we possessed those talents and those skills. Very important, man. Because we want to dispel two myths. We want to dispel the myth that Gullah culture or Gullah people come from indigenous Native American culture. It doesn't.
Thank you. Not.
It doesn't.
Speaking on this Indian thing, man, I had this conversation just last night, and everybody want to say that they got Cherokee princess or they Choctaw and they this and that. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. I've done the DNA. It was the rumor in my family that granny this or granny that was Indian. Come to find out, we don't have not nary a drop, and that's the same for a lot of African American families.
There you go.
It is a myth. It is a myth.
Yes,
some of us will have a tiny bit, but the majority of us, nah. We're going to be at least about 77 to 80% African on average, and
that's right.
and it's going to be like 20% European. But that is a myth about this Indian thing, man. And it is shameful to try to steal somebody else's culture when our own culture is just as good as anybody else's.
There you go.
Yeah. What are you actually saying? You know what I mean? What do you really mean by that? You were Indian.
You dishonoring your own ancestors when you do that.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So let's go there. Let's talk about spirituality and the Africanisms that still retain within contemporary Gullah spirituality. Right now, we all know that there's a revival of hoodoo root work. We know that. We know that there's even, I would say, even like a cosmetic, a washed down, commercialized version, variant, trend going on that's happening. While on one hand, it is helping to popularize and cleanse a tradition and the reputation of the stigma of being involved in Gullah Geechee. Because I have grandparent ancestors who did the work, and when they was alive, it was stigmatized. When they was alive, they was witches. When they was alive, they didn't get treated the same by the good old church folk. And so now you got people who's now saying, no, this is something great. This is something good from Africa. This is something great, something that we all should be connected to. And even people who from all over the United States of America are identifying with this as a closed tradition.
That's right.
Hoodoo root work. Let's talk about the African roots of the hoodoo root work. Where does it come from? Is that something Native American? Or can we find African traditions also at the root of the hoodoo root work?
That's right. That's right. That is solely as an African system. It is an African diasporic spiritual system. Point blank, period. The most common things that some of us, well, Baba and others older grew up seeing, you can find cultural connections all throughout the Caribbean and West Central Africa.
That's right.
Man, I'm a hoodoo man. That's our culture. That's what their ancestors used to help protect them from whatever the buckler was trying to do to us. It was for protection. It was for everyday living. It taught us how to live with nature. It taught us how to live with ourselves. It was a way that we could be ourselves and not become what they wanted us to be. So now it is up to us to maintain that culture, that tradition. I try to use it. I live it.
That's right.
And the older I get, and I remember things from back in the day, I know that's what my ancestors did. They didn't necessarily call it hoodoo or whatever, but it is what it is. I know for a fact because I witnessed it, I lived it. I know about my grandparents talking about these different things and seeing different things for myself coming up. I was raised on the front porch.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was raised on the front porch. So, like I said, you have to live these things, man. So
there you go.
And the older you get, when you look back, you'll see it. You'll see it when as you get older, you'll say, I see things today and I can say like, oh, Papa did that. Mr. Bill did that. Miss Bill. So I incorporate these things into my living now.
That's why I always stress, man, visit your local libraries and talk to your living libraries. Talk to the people in your family and your surrounding area who are open-minded and open-hearted to talk to you about certain things. Point blank, period.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Get the information from where the information is at. And a lot of times you want to either get it from what they call the horse's mouth, or from someone who witnessed it with their own eyes and experienced it with their own senses. So absolutely. Another form of the Africanism that we find within contemporary Gullah culture is them good old Gullah Black traditional churches. Them churches down in them sticks. Them churches down on them islands, man. Don't nobody in the world do it like us, bruh. I don't think we understand that down there. Nobody prays like us. Don't nobody got that singing like us, that religious fervor like us. Of course, if you're dealing with slavery, you're not just dealing with someone exploiting your labor. We dealt with a diabolical, genocidal situation where they was trying to break our will to be humans. And these spiritual songs, these hymns or whatever, these spirituals, these Negro spirituals, they gave us subjective energy. They gave us emotional power in times where we was in distress. They made us strong when times the enemy was trying to make us weak. They made us suck it up and make it through the day. And so they're not just songs.
They have
it's part of our spirituality. And the church has helped to retain that aspect. So let's talk about the church and the Africanism that we still find in the church.
Yeah, they had double meanings as well. Like to the slave owner or the overseer, it meant one thing, but to those within the circle who were singing the songs, it meant, okay, this is a coded language to get you from this place to that place here.
Man, y'all, I have seen the power come down when people get happy in church.
Talk about it.
I came up in praise houses. Very first churches I ever been to growing up was churches that developed from out the swamp. You know what I'm saying?
I've seen some of these churches.
Oh, some of the churches are Good Hope, Cedar Grove, Bushy Pond, Emmanuel, Shady Grove. All those churches came out of the swamps. I am a direct descendant of men who emerged from the swamps to build their own churches.
There you go.
And building churches is what we did. Those churches are institutions for us. Those were the very first things we built, and it gave us power. those churches, them praise houses, they were extensions of the secret societies from West Central Africa. Those things we learned in the bush in Africa
That's right. That's right.
They were transferred here to America, and that is what helped. That's what gave us the power to sustain ourselves and you know, to be strong.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. And you know, even when you look at like in the Caribbean, for instance, you see a lot of mixing of religion and spirituality. You see in like, if you look at Santeria, you see that they took their African spirituality and took it into the Catholic Church and just disguised it, but it still remained African in essence. You see that even in voodoo, it's the same thing. They mixed it a little with Catholic. Now, those Latino people, that's what they was into. They was Catholic, they was Catholics. But the people who enslaved us were Protestants. So we did the same thing, but within Protestantism. We did it within the Baptist church. We did it within the Methodist church. So you got to understand that your ancestors had altars too. They had a certain place in the house that was only for obituaries and deceased loved ones. And they would go there when they have a problem, and they might go there and think. They might go there and just talk to themselves. They might go there and actually have a conversation with those ancestors. And that right there is an altar. And you see it in times of grief, times of gladdiness, of happiness, right? And so it's very important what we're talking about, y'all. I want to highlight this as well. What Brother Ross Lazarus has said. Shout out to Brother Ross Lazarus. I seen him on the EWF call yesterday. Trust me, we're building traditional African government systems back. We're restoring the traditional order back to our people now in many different ways. And Gullah Geechee people are a part of that wave. Those are the same Africans who traveled here years ago before slavery. This is another part of the, we're Native American discussion, because there is evidence to the fact that there was possible crossings of Africans to the Americans prior to quote unquote Christopher Columbus.
That's right.
And there's a lot of evidence to that. But if we're talking about those Africans being confused as Indians, then we're talking about something completely different. So I just wanted to address that. There is an oral tradition. We all heard of Mansa Musa, right?
Yes, sir.
We all heard that name, Mansa Musa, right? Well, Mansa Musa was an emperor for the Mali Empire. And I don't know if y'all can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. It's fine, bro. Oh, no.
I think he froze. But
he was too hot for him, man. He's getting too hot for him. They had to freeze him.
Yeah. But I know since we were talking about religion, I wanted to point it out one thing real quick, as I know we're short for time now. But one thing I wanted to say as far as religion go, that's where you see the Africanisms the most.
There you go.
In the homegoing ceremonies and the funerals and everything. And we were talking about songs. One song I know for a fact, I hear it at every funeral, is the song "I'll Fly Away."
I'll fly away. I know that song very well.
I'll Fly Away. I hear that at every funeral, and I've been hearing it a lot lately. And the reason why I've been hearing it a lot lately is because we had a war on Christmas, y'all. And when they say Christmas is warm, the graveyards will be fat. So I've been going to a lot of family funerals, and at every funeral I go to, I hear the song "I'll Fly Away" at the end of the service. And what that song means is at the end of the service, your spirit will fly back away to your ancestors, to Africa. So when they sing that song, that means their spirit is soaring. It's going back home.
I want to add too that a burial ritual that some people might be familiar with is crossing a baby or a small child over the grave or the casket of the deceased. I had that performed. You know, that was performed on my great grand back in '98. I was the one who they crossed over, and that's a very, very African influence tradition, because you can find that you got people from Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and I believe Southwest Louisiana, and all across the Caribbean saying they witnessed this burial tradition. I got a friend of mine from Nigeria, he's Igala. He said he witnessed it. Come, like all these different locations, man.
Oh yeah, I've seen it for myself, man. I've seen it for myself. I've seen people, I've seen Masons do certain steps before a casket is closed.
That's right.
They had a certain step, dance move. Not a dance, but it was a step that they would use to honor who just deceased.
That's right. Welcome back.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. So, y'all talking about the carryover, the Passover?
We were talking about the funerals and everything, the funeral rituals.
I was talking about shaking off what's called shaking off the spirit, crossing a baby or a small child over the coffin, because there's different variations of it. Eartha Kitt, she witnessed it being her brother was crossed over her mother's grave, I believe 4 or 5 or 6 times. I was crossed maybe 4 times to form a cross.
Right. So let me try to jump this, get this in real quick too, because you're absolutely right about the spiritual crossing and everything. But
that's right.
She's saying, this is Sister Jolanda. She's also a Gullah Geechee sister from down in Florida. She's saying, please address the Ogeechee River while you're discussing this, please. I think that's very, very important. The Ogeechee River, during colonial times, when Carolina was Carolina and there was no Georgia, Ogeechee was like a territory or like a marker, from my understanding. That river, that particular river that has the name Ogeechee. People will argue about where the name comes from. Some people will say it comes from the Native Americans. Others will say it comes from the Africans. Some will say Geechee is an Americanized version of Geechee.
Geechee, that's right.
Some would say, yes, some would say that you had people from Igbo people, like Igbo landing, down in that parts of Georgia, and it's a common name in Igbo called Ogeechee.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
You never know.
Never
Just
know.
like the Gullah word. We have Gullah from Angola. We got the Gola rainforest here.
That's right.
We got the Igala down there. We got the Guwala over there, right? So you never really know the exact source, but you know that it comes from an African place.
That's right.
And so I don't know where the Ogeechee name originates. There's a debate around that. But I do know that that river was like a natural boundary between the Spanish territories and the British territories. And so I think that may have played a role in Geechee or African people in that area taking on that southern name.
That's
as
right.
Opposed to taking the Gullah name, which was more closer to Charleston and more close to the port of to them Sea Islands in South Carolina. Now today, Gullah and Geechee, we the same people, understand that we would call ourselves and we're called by different names.
That's right.
We agree with Queen Quet when she stands and says, no, we're not going to separate them names no more. We the same people. Gullah and Geechee is one. We agree with that. We agree with that aspect of it. Let's not separate ourselves up. And also, even while we're talking about this subject, let's also show respect and pay respect to Native Americans too, because there was occasions where they were our allies and not our slave masters, which was often the case. And so in those cases where they were our allies and they helped us to escape and were able to bear arms with us, they helped keep us free, man, salute to them right there, man. Especially the ones that we still carry their bloodlines within us. Shout out to them all day long. We should give them praise and reverence too, but we're never going to get it mixed up. We're never going to get it messed up. We're African people. And DNA say that. Look what Brother Larry is saying right here, right on the top. Most Gullahs are over 90% West and Central African. That is an absolute truth. We are genetic genealogists. We help dozens of people with their genetic research. And so we have an inside look on saying, hey, most people from this Gullah group, we have some very high African numbers in these percentages, right? And we're the most biologically African DNA based, or DNA, if you want to take DNA, we have more African DNA than anybody else in America.
That's what I love to say, man. We are a Pan-African people, both genetically and culturally.
Man, yeah, I've done the test. I've done the Y test. I've done the maternal test. my DNA, my Y, my mother is all African. I don't care what anybody says. It's more African than anything else. We are an African people, and I will say that till the cows come home.
Even if they all home, look, even if they all don't come home, you still keep saying it. Don't ever stop.
Yeah.
Hey, Dom, let me tell you something,
I say that, Dom, because you know how long it take a cow to come home. Back in the day, man, the cow.
I heard
you'd have to chase them rascals all day long.
Oh yeah,
they don't never come home. They don't never come home.
So it's interesting, right? Because a lot of people we ignore these things, but it's real. But many modern today African people, men and women, when they get out there to the West, the first thing they do is go jump over to the snow bunnies into Old Billy. And so there's a lot of half-caste children of African parentage. And when those children come back, they get full citizenship. And when those children come back, they get full recognition in the tribe. So what's the difference with us? We got 90%, 95% DNA, and we come back and get questioned at the door in Africa. But these people can come back with 50% African DNA and get the full red carpet treatment. These are contradictions. And so this is why it's fine for us to talk about the content of our Africanness, even in biological terms. I'm glad that we do the work that we do, because not everyone has taken it biological to prove the actual genetic roots of our people. And we can put a lot of arguments to bed just by having these kind of discussions. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man. So we talked about also, like we're talking about the biological part. Another part was that genetically what we found is that there's a clustering. And what we mean by clustering is like, let's say you have a group of elephants in East Africa, and they happen to be in the country of Kenya. And these elephants have lived there for 10, 15, 20 generations within that same confinement. Now, they're not the only elephants on Earth, but they're the only elephants that they know. They've been mixing and mingling among themselves. Now, if you take a genetic sample from them and a genetic sample from any other elephant in the world, true, they're going to be the same species. They're going to be elephants. But if you go and trace their genetic markers, you're going to realize that there's certain mutations and certain admixtures that exist within this particular group of elephants that don't exist in the same way in any other group of elephants. That's called clustering. That's called clustering. That means you have a cluster of elephants, a genetic cluster, right? Now, we also have genetic clustering. When we're taking this DNA test and this assigning you to communities, say, okay, well, your ancestors were in this part of the country, in this area of Mississippi. It's saying that you have a genetic clustering among the people who test from that area, that you have a gene pool in that area, that there's chances is you got a lot of third, fourth, fifth cousins in that area. And so it's important for us to understand what we're doing when we're doing these genetic reviews and doing this research to try to connect people, because there's a clustering effect. And that's what we're getting when we're doing these DNA tests, and it's telling you you have a 35% proximity to this particular group. You have a 10% proximity to this particular group. It's breaking your DNA down and comparing it and connecting it to clusters, regional and genetic clusters.
That's right.
Right? And so that's what we mean by tracing the biological roots, utilizing modern DNA and things like that, which is very, 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 very important, because whether you know it or not, even Europeans who descend from the colonizers, the ones who went out and conquered America and never went back to Europe. I'm talking about you got European lineages in America with 10 generations on American soil. They never went back to Europe. And right now today, they're taking DNA tests to find out who they're connected to in Europe. This is why the DNA even came out. This is why it's even being made available to everybody else. There's Indian people who became indentured workers back in the day, and they got took to the Caribbean. They got took all over the British Empire. Guess who's taking DNA tests right now to find out who they're related to? Those same Indians.
People, that's right.
Those same Indians. So other people in the world are using this technology to their advantage. We should too.
That's right.
We should too. And so we take full advantage of it and make sure that we include it, because we're talking about the language that's observable. We're talking about the basket weaving. Okay, everybody can't do a basket weaving, but this DNA,
Dana,
you can't change that.
That Dana.
That's the code changer. That the DNA don't lie. That's the code changer. That's one thing you cannot deny. That's one thing you cannot lie on. I've done the testing, so all my testing matches up. It matches up historically. It matches up with my family history. I'm in love with the DNA. I follow the science.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's good to cross-reference in all areas, because before DNA tests, we was going to the Babalewo. We was going to the people who had the ability to do divination, and many people still go to divination as well. And so you might take a DNA test, get all the way back to Africa, and then they go to divination to confirm you. They don't give a fuck about DNA tests. Excuse my language. They don't care about the DNA test, right? They care about is if you match their own system of verifying you. That's very, very important, because we got to respect the fact that some people have traditions that we've lost.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Right.
And so, like right here, this brother, Ross Lazarus said, they list the African Baptist Church as the oldest here in Savannah, but it's not. For in the Gullah Sea Islands, we had churches before this. In the Gullah, we had pen societies, right?
Pen societies, that's right. That's right. I've read plenty about that. Even those who were coming from Congo, who were Catholic, they infused African traditions and beliefs with their Catholicism, creating a synchronism, and they were being brought over. They maintained these societies the best way they could. It was Thomas Turpin, a missionary back in the 1830s, 40s. He on Bull Island. He witnessed the Africans within their societies and what they were doing. How they would punish certain people who would do certain things, the bending seed ritual, or pouring corn in a sack and things of that sort, amongst others.
Right, exactly. And then, brother, when you talk about the first African Baptist church in Savannah, we know for a fact it wasn't the first church, because the first church that was actually established in terms of having a congregation was actually Silver Bluff, if I'm not mistaken.
What's known as Aiken.
And Silver Bluff was located in modern-day Aiken County.
That's right.
Which was back then Orangeburg District.
That's right.
And not far from Augusta. So during the American Revolution, before that, prior to that, there was a plantation out there on what was it called? Beach Island?
Beach Island. Yeah.
Beach Island. And the slave master, he was a part of this awakening movement, this saying that, well, the Africans can practice their own religion. You know, we was able to establish our own congregation, have our own ministers. And so out of that one congregation, you get two of the first ordained practicing ministers from African American history. You get George Lilly, and you also get David George.
That's right.
So you get those two, and then later on you get Andrew Bryant down in Savannah. Mm-hmm. Those three right there are the ones who paved the way for all this Bible Belt, Christianity, all this back in the day, in terms of how we see it in terms of institutional church structures. So it was the congregation of Silver Bluff and Aiken that during the American Revolution fled to Savannah. Mm-hmm. That started the first African Baptist church in Savannah.
Mm-hmm. And from then on,
from Orangeburg District, South Carolina, who fled to Savannah during the American Revolution, who established the first African Baptist church with Brian. And David George went on to Nova Scotia. He ended up being a founder of Freetown and preached the first Baptist sermon in Africa, and also brought his church congregation here with him. Then the other guy, George Lilly, became one of the first missionaries in the Caribbean.
That's
also, right. He's accredited as one of the first people to preach Ethiopianism, particularly in Jamaica, which is important because you know the relationship between Jamaicans and Ethiopianism. And all of this starts at a certain time before the American Revolution. on a plantation in Orangeburg District, Silver Bluff.
That's right.
You gotta know the history. And so we're going to keep this conversation going as we, we're back with the shows. Thank y'all for showing up, man. As y'all see, I've been sharing things on the screen all day because the people out there, man, they feeling this conversation.
That's right.
We're touching on things that, we're authorities to touch on because we do the work, the research. We should be touching on and talking about these things more.
That's right. That's right.
Let's see if they have any comments we have to definitely address. If not, it's good because I see them having conversation among themselves as well. There was a conversation about the Gullah, and for me, when it comes to the Gullah, my understanding is that even that word was first written down by the Spanish.
That's right.
And you have to understand that Guale is not G, it's Gua. Gullah. So Gullah and Gullah is not the same.
Thank you.
It's not the word that inspires Gullah. In Africa, right now where I'm at, you have a forest called Gola, Gola. Gola. In Angola, parts of the Congo that became known as Angola, the name for the title for their leader was called Ngola.
Ngola.
So we talk about great freedom fighters like Queen Nzinga, right? And you realize that her title was Gola. So her people was rebelling and getting grabbed up and sold out to plantations all across the West. What do you think they would identify themselves as? And so there's a lot of reasons why people would use and resonate with the word Gola without even having to ever come in contact with the word Gullah. So these Gullah people are a group of Native American people that the white man claims that they're extinct, that they no longer exist as a group. And, like I said, it's the anti-Africanism. It's the self-hatred that makes people, they're really stretching and trying to make it where at somehow, some way, the origins of this Gullah Geechee name and identity and culture has something to do with some secret Native Americans that we can't still identify anywhere in our culture.
That's foolishness because all you have to do, literally, you got number of sources of runaway advertisements, and you got prime Congo and Gullah people, Gulla. Then you got people from the wandering slave ship back in who were in Drums and Shadows. They're referring to them as Gullah people. So I mean, it's just you got plenty of firsthand accounts, documents, and sources. People just gotta be willing to read. R-E-A-D. Read.
That's it.
And also talk to your living libraries as well, but I'd be down. Excuse my expression.
Yeah, man. So the struggle continues. As we try to rebuild our civilization, because that's what it really is. We talk about all these aspects of Gullah Geechee culture, being African in origins and nature, even to the day. So when you go back and you watch this for the second time, because you're going to have to watch this one 2 times. You go back and watch this one, I want you to really, really, really challenge everything that we said here. I don't want you to accept anything we say on this platform as just, oh, these guys, they're so intelligent. Oh, they're Gullah, so they know. No, challenge it. Challenge it. Challenge what we say. Know for yourself. That is the best way to learn, is to know it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research and verify that my word is good. And then I'll meet you back here in 2 weeks for the next lesson. That's how it goes.
And if you need help, seek one of us out. If you need help, man, I'm open to help. I love to talk.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Seek one of us out.
Any last words, bye-bye, Kemoh?
Oh man, this is what we do, man. I love this conversation. We could go on and on and on, but yeah, like I say, man, I love this conversation. I love to share knowledge about the culture, about the history, and that's what we're going to be doing when we connect. When we do our roots and reconnection thing at the festival here in about 3 more weeks. And yeah, we're gonna do our thing. And if you're in the area, come on out and join us as we celebrate this Gullah Geechee cultural heritage.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. And if you haven't so far, I want to encourage y'all again to go ahead and make a purchase. Go ahead and get your copy of Gullah Sovereignty, African Communalism, and the Mandane Kafu Model. We can't just talk about culture. We can't just talk about what we used to be a long time ago. We got to get back on it today. We got to begin to study these traditional models of our people. You can't say, "Oh, our ancestors were so great," but we don't study their models. We don't implement them in our modern day way. So this is my humble contribution to that. Working on the outline for a second book, y'all. I think y'all really gonna love this one that's coming. But support the chief. Support the chief.
That's right.
It's for you that I do this work.
That's right.
But Dom, anything?
Man, for those of you who don't know, but let me say this again: the roots and essence of Gullah Geechee culture are in the Low Country and Sea Islands. But always remember, like with a tree, the branches extend all over Bamberg, Barnwell, Orangeburg, Aiken, Allendale, Sumter, Lee, Florence, Marion, outside of South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, the whole world. Just always remember that.
Gullah Sport. That's right.
Go. I'm done.
All right, y'all. All right, so, hey, man, shout out to y'all. In 2 weeks, we'll be back. We got another hot topic for y'all. And sorry we couldn't address everybody, but y'all know what it is. Any real questions, get at us on Facebook or wherever you know us from. Yeah, man, it's nothing but love. We're going to get out of here.
Peace, y'all. Have a great day.
Right.
Jag minns ju den tid du gav mig life billar jag. Nu vill jag kunna ge tillbaka allt jag inte kunna ge förut. Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för det baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. Och det jag lägger all min tid och jag vill ha det. Du får mig känna safety. Jag kan nog leda baby. Och jag kommer aldrig ändra mig.